All right, looking ahead, another sort of free agent, Russian, big stuff here.
Man, I love watching this unfold. I know Daniel hates it, but I love watching this.
And Minnesota had one thing going for him this year, and it may not go well now. So this is from Frank Saravelli. Update: Hearing Kirill Kaprizov has a tentative agreement in place with CSKA Moscow on a 1-year, 8-figure deal in American dollars to begin on September 1st should a new contract not materialize with the Minnesota Wild. However, the Wild appear ready and willing to talk to a medium-term length deal. Initial hangup was Minnesota was only interested in a 7 or 8-year deal for the Calder Trophy winner. That's not the case. That's not the case. Bunch of options in term, but the Kaprizov camp contends there has been no offer made since April. We'll see where this goes. Two sides remain in communication. So first off, if anyone out there believed that the Russian salary caps, the hard salary cap in the KHL was a thing, no, it's not.
Just you know who owns CSKA Moscow?
Is it partly government owned, or it's either partly government owned or an oil tycoon?
Probably. So it's an oil company named Rosneft, and guess who they're owned by?
Putin.
The government.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Okay.
So that tells you what you need to know about the deal. Like, I bet there's a deal there. I believe there's a deal there, but like they can do whatever they want because it's Russia. Like I can't be more clear than that.
So is he just trying to inch towards free agency at this point? And he just quickly.
Yeah. It literally seems like that.
Sorry, Daniel.
Daniel.
Wouldn't it? And I feel like we've had this discussion, but I'll bring it up again. Would it not be beneficial to I know you're walking him to free agency, but in 3 years' time, when the big chunk of those two buyouts are off the books, you now have all this money to offer Kirill Kaprizov in 3 years' time. Like, I get you don't want to walk him to free agency because he might leave, but if you continue to win, if you continue to improve and you have a boatload of money and you're not going to go out and get Eichel, I think there's more upside here.
Well, isn't it more like in 3 years, that's when all their cap stuff is gone? And then in 3 years, that's when they start getting bit?
So yeah, in 4 years, the 7.5 or $14 million, that's...
It would be better for them to try and just go for it in this 4-year window, because it's either you give Kaprizov what he wants and you have that asset, and if you know he's going to leave, then you trade him, or he goes to Russia and you're back, then you're worse than you were with Parise and Sutter.
Exactly, but that's my point. Like, Minnesota seemed to want to go long term with him, and it only until recently has that changed. But if you say, okay, we will hand you a 4-year contract and say after 4 years, we're actually going to have $14 million in more cap space. So we'll be able to offer you a boatload of money, and hopefully the guys we expect to take those steps. Like, there's still young guys. There's Matthew Boldy, who hasn't played a game yet. Marco Rossi, who hasn't played a game yet. Who did they take this year? Like, there's guys who will be taking those steps and filling around it. It's not like he's signing a 4-year deal and he's in Buffalo.
What do you think, Comrade Mike?
Whoa. Whoa.
Just threw that in there. Threw that in there.
I'm surprised, really. I'm surprised that the glory of the NHL is something that Kaprizov would put on the line. Like, he would actually rather go, because like he'd rather go back to the KHL rather than play in the best league in the world where he was a superstar, because they want to give him a couple more years. I think Minnesota's caving in though. I mean, we see reports all the time that Minnesota. I would think Minnesota's going to cave in and give them like that bridge deal, and I think it'll work out because, like you said, once that absolute nightmare of dead money on the cap is gone, that's a lot of money right there. So I don't know. It's interesting because honestly, it really just lies on where his heart is. Does he want to play in the Premier League of the world, the best league, the NHL? Or does he want to go back to his native land, the KHL? Because he would rather go there for God. I think they offered him, what, a 1-year deal for like $8 million or something like that?
I think it said it's 8 figures.
Yeah.
So $10 million, man.
Even bigger, sorry. So, yeah, and they have money to throw around.
That's Mitch Marner money.
Yeah, for any Leafs fan that's out there, ha ha ha. Leafs fans, they're so naive. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you really think he would go away back to the KHL for a year and bet on coming back to the NHL again after that?
Well, what's going to change in a year?
What's going to change in a year? Exactly.
So what exactly happens? So for him to eventually be a free agent, even after 26, he's still Minnesota property, is he not?
Yeah.
So he would basically, what I assume would be is he would have to, if he just goes back to Russia, if he comes back to Minnesota and they will welcome him back with open arms,
yeah,
then he would try and look for like a very short-term deal to try and get out. Like, right, that would probably be his option. So he either goes back to Russia for at least a year or two until he's able to be a UFA. Like, he's going to have to, if he wants to play in the NHL, no matter what.
Play for Minnesota for a bit.
He has to, yeah.
He's literally, all he's doing is basically, in Minnesota, yeah, they'd welcome him back for open arms, but they wouldn't want him. Actually, no, they wouldn't accept that. Take basically a year off to play for another league instead of us.
Because New Jersey had to do that with Kovalchuk, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a whole.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was a nightmare to get Kovalchuk back in the league. But yeah,
he just can't make the mistake Kovalchuk did. Because Kovalchuk was every year there was something about him. By the time he came back, he was a depth player again. He was only back
because it took way too long.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to be careful.
I think the other option is if he leaves, they can trade him. Like if he doesn't want to
trade his rights,
that's the only other thing I can think of, because if he's just on Minnesota and he's hard set on not wanting to be in Minnesota, and I don't know if that's the case, but if that is the case, like why are you just keeping a depreciating asset? As time goes on, he clearly doesn't want to be here. So you're gonna have to get rid of him somehow.
I don't even think it's about him not wanting to be there as much as he's just gauging team success, right? Because he isn't saying, I want to be here for 3 years so I can leave immediately. It's, I want to be here for 3 years so then I can weigh my options for which team is the best that I can go to.
And I still don't understand why Minnesota is so hard set on not, like why they were so hard set on so long for giving him the max.
I'm sure he'll take a 4-year deal, a 2, 3 or 4 year deal. And even if it's 3, it's 1 year to soak without him. And by then, Minnesota will start putting pieces together.
Well, you got to think of it like this. If we're questioning why are Minnesota going to be so hard foot on this, they need him way more than in a way that he will need Minnesota. Like especially Parise and Suter stuff. You got to think that a lot of the thought, not just to kind of see what cap or capture would have been, but it probably also would have been like, this money is going to help us keep him. Now, I think the bigger question there, as Alex is like, and what's bad with him if this thing about no offer since April is a big problem. Like you have to eventually, like a good negotiation, the word is, I think Friedman has said this before, is if both sides are a little upset about what's kind of happened. Like there is no such thing as a perfect negotiation. Like both sides almost have to be like, what about this? What about that? Like I think that's more thing on Minnesota is they got to move here on some point. And it's like with every day now, Mike said it, we're almost done the summer.
Yeah.
It's disastrous for you if you go into next year without Kaprizov.
It's not about having to necessarily move. It's about giving him options that aren't 7 or 8 year deals. Like if he doesn't want the 7 or 8 year deal, okay, that option is still there for you if you want it. If you want 8 years by they said he was going to be the highest paid player in Wild history.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty chunky number.
Yeah.
If you sign him for 8 years. But you have to have other options. Like you can't just say we're only going long term and that's it, because this is the result of that. The result of that is I haven't received a contract offer since April. Like that's the craziest part to me, as you say it out loud, is he hasn't received a contract offer since April. How do you let that happen?
That's if that report is true.
That's if that report is true, obviously. Yes.
Allegedly. If not, if they have offered him a $7-8 million deal and he's declined it, then it's much different if he's really genuinely not had anything since April. Because if so, that's pathetic. That's before the playoffs even started. So
I don't know if Justin Russo. No, is it Justin?
Michael Russo.
Michael. Sorry. So I wish Daniel was here. He would have the scoop. He'd have the scoop.